watching Money Control, and I am Shweta Punch. Today we have with us a very special guest. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Harish Salve, the former Solicitor General of India, one of India's most sought-after lawyers who is famous for taking on the most controversial cases. He's done India proud at the ICJ, and of course, it's a pleasure to have him join us all the way from London. Thank you very much, Mr. Salve. Also joining me on the show is Tyagarajan, my colleague, who tracks the legal beat at Money Control. Mr. Salve, how's it looking? How's the view of India from London, considering
Well,
all that's going on?
no, India's view, not just from London, India's global view is now very different. Considering the economic gloom that is facing Europe and considering the overall state of play in the other parts of the world, India is perceived as quite a bright spot, and it is very obvious, as you may have seen, the way in which the free trade agreement is being pursued by the UK. You can see how important they consider India to be in the global space.
Right. So a very optimistic view of India, and it's great to hear that. Considering you're giving us a bird's eye view because you're outside, because within the country, as you know, there are Karnataka elections going on. There's a vicious narrative playing out on that front, and then you have this entire controversy around the Kerala story, the filmmakers. You're representing the filmmakers. West Bengal has banned the film. I want to get a sense from you, because sitting in India, we get to hear so much, we get a lot of flack on freedom of press, freedom of speech. Our rankings are not looking very good on the freedom of press index. Then you have state governments banning films. What's your view on, on what you see at the moment in terms of this fight between narratives?
See, this fight between narratives is a reflection of the larger political fight that we all see playing out day in and day out in India. And it's in one manner of speaking, it's an ideological divide. It's also a political divide. And I am not an expert in politics, so I like to stay away from commenting on these things. So I think it's more of a divide on those lines rather than really a fight about a movie. The movie is being made a kind of a scapegoat of this narrative of being candid, being open versus targeting a community, and this kind of debate which we see
Right.
going on and on in India.
So, Mr. Salve, you are representing the filmmakers, and one of the demands of the petitioners is that the film at the very beginning needs to specify that this is a purely fictional piece of work, and that's where the argument comes in. I wanted your comment on that. Where is this demand coming from?
Well,
And
I don't want to comment on that since the matter is going to be in court very shortly. Beyond saying that there is a disclaimer which says it's inspired by true stories. It's not a documentary. It's not a biopic. It's not a documentary. It's inspired by true stories. Now, if that is good enough or not good enough is quite another matter. And I am quite certain, if you hear the criticism, it is not so much about criticizing it. It's more about a political point being made, saying you're painting a community in a bad light. You're showing certain things which don't reflect the reality in community, etc. That's a very different debate. So I think this disclaimer is really one of the very side issues. It is nothing more than a side issue in this entire
right.
play.
Have you seen the film?
No.
You've not seen.
I've seen the trailer of the movie, and I don't
Okay.
think it's necessary for me to see that. I'm not the censor board. For me, it's necessary to know that the censor board has looked at it, their decision is there. There is an appellate procedure which nobody has followed. Nobody has challenged the decision of the censor board. They challenged it in judicial review. A division bench of the Kerala High Court rejected the challenge. They now want to bring it to Supreme Court. I understand all that going on. What we find, what I fought against in Arakshan and what we are fighting against here is state governments who do not have the locus, who do not have the power to ban movies, taking it upon themselves to ban movies. On the fig leaf of preventing breakdown in law and order, when as early as in Fire, that movie
That's
which
right.
had been made,
Yes.
when Fire was threatened by Bal Thackeray in Mumbai,
Yeah.
he had moved a petition under Article 32.
Mhm.
And the Supreme Court said, how dare you? And if there's going to be a breakdown of law and order, it's your job as the government to prevent that breakdown. You can't say there'll be a breakdown, therefore I won't show it.
Mhm.
Now, it's interesting that the same people who so lauded the Supreme Court order saying don't do this are now the people who are saying should not allow
Yeah.
this movie because there'll be a breakdown. This is what is happening in Indian society, and I'm sorry this is taking.
And we saw it during with the release of Kashmir Files as well. So we there was a huge controversy, a huge uproar across the country, and a huge pushback to ban the film. Is that something unique to India?
Did India burn after Fire was released? Did India burn after Arakshan was released? And Arakshan I've seen. I think it was a pretty good movie.
It was a very good film.
Yeah,
Yeah.
correct. Did India burn after Kashmir Files was released?
Okay.
And this India burning also is a narrative. I mean, don't we who have lived long years in India?
Yes.
Don't we know it burns when a group of people want it to burn?
True. True. Absolutely.
Indians
I want
are
to get
Indians are a peace-loving people.
That's true, sir. We are. We are very peace loving.
Yeah.
I want to get your view in. So exciting things are happening here. The Supreme Court is keeping very busy. We have the same sex marriage case going on right now. Exactly a decade after the Supreme Court had made that controversial observation on criminalizing homosexuality, and you spoke very, very strongly against it. What's your view at the moment? Because there is a pushback from the government that this is something which should be dealt with legislatively.
You see,
What-
this is
I wanna- yeah.
it's a very interesting thing. It started. Let's get away from who should be doing it and take a step back. The courts have a role to play. Should the courts be rewriting law? No. But should the courts not do anything? No. Look at what happened in England way back when people started living together. There was no law to provide for living together. And the English court came up with a notion of what's called a common law wife. That if a couple lives together, there is something called a common law wife. So the court found a solution within the existing law. The Supreme Court has already decriminalized same-sex offenses and has recognized that a person's orientation is an integral part of his right to privacy and his right to live his life the way he wants. Surely the court can interfere in any disabilities which are being created. The court can recognize as a general principle of law what principles as common law must govern a same-sex couple. That is within the realm of the court. The question whether you can extend the Special Marriage Act to same-sex marriages may be a step too far. That's my personal view.
Okay, you think it's a step too far,
It's a step too far, not because it should or should not be done, but this is a matter which society. What is marriage law? Marriage law is society accepting a particular relationship and that setting down the boundaries of the relationship, setting down the circumstances in which the relationship must be put to an end, and setting out the financial consequences of that relationship. Societies, marriage, divorce, matters like this are, in one sense, integrally connected with society. And while I'm totally for, I mean, you have a very good model and one can find the middle way. For example, in the UK, you have the civil partnership law. So you can have something like that. And civil partnership law is not confined to the same sex, to different sexes. Civil partnership can be of two persons of the same sex. So, but Parliament has to find a resolution to this. And I'm sure Parliament will find a resolution to this. That, therefore, sort of stretching the Special Marriage Act, which was clearly not meant for binary relationships, maybe a step too far.
Okay, I'll request Tyagarajan to come in now. Tyagarajan, over to you.
Hello, sir. So my first question will be on how the Bar Council of India permitting foreign law firms entry into the country will play out in the legal industry as a whole.
It is a small step, but it's a step in the right direction. I have never minced my words where it came to my opinion on foreign firms. I must tell you, right from 2000, when I was from year 2000, when I was Solicitor General of India, I had a meeting with the British delegation, and I said, I'm all for allowing foreign firms to come and practice in India. Please understand what's the meaning of foreign firms practicing in India. And I'm sorry to say, the judgment of the Supreme Court, which deals with foreign firms practicing in India, did not even understand what it implies. So let me explain to you what it implies. If a foreign firm comes and practices in India, it will hire Indian lawyers to practice Indian law. They will be associates, they will be partners. All Indian law will be practiced by Indian lawyers, just that they will practice under the guidance of and under the rubric of an international firm. It will be a huge advantage to international clients who will have the comfort of having their own firms when they come to work here. Why is it that when Indian businessmen go abroad to negotiate, they take a partner from an Indian law firm whom they're used to dealing with to sit by their side? So that is what is going to happen. The second thing will be that this will be a tremendous opportunity for young Indian lawyers to work with international lawyers and bring Indian commercial law practice on par with global commercial law practice. So this will be fantastic training for Indian lawyers. And believe me, I have full faith. I mean, see the number of youngsters being recruited by English law firms. See the number of Indians who are practicing in the English courts. So I have no doubt in my mind, Indians will do wonderfully well. And that is the meaning of foreign firms coming here. So you will have American Baker McKenzie or Skadden Arps, so you will have an English Slaughter and May or a Freshfields, but it will have Indian partners. So this entire fear of Indian lawyers being upstaged by foreign lawyers is a myth. Now, who is perpetrating the myth? This myth is being perpetrated by Indian law firms, whose business will suffer. Today, foreign firms have to sign up what are called best friend relationship with Indian law firms. That means the Indian law firm will associate with them and will not appear against or will not accept briefs against the clients of such firms. This will come to an end. This franchising in India will come to an end. Who suffers? The Indian law firms also are of no lesser quality, and they will have to compete in the market with the foreign law firms for getting work. So this monopoly of Indian law firms is all that is going to come to an end by this. It was about time that was done, and I'm so happy. Look at the accountancy profession. See where accountancy profession is today and see where it was 20 years ago. And that is thanks to all the Deloittes, the PwCs, the ENYs, the Grant Thorntons coming into India. So what's wrong with this? We should have done it much earlier. Thank God we've done it. We've taken a small step. I think we need to open it up fully.
Certainly, sir. So now recently, the Supreme Court has actually held that it has deprecated sealed cover practices basically handing out documents in sealed covers to the court without giving copies to the opposing side. So, what do you think about it, sir? Do you think we should get?
I have been a trenchant critic always
Yes, sir.
of court-monitored investigation, save and except in very, very extreme cases. Today, it's become a norm. Everybody comes say you must have a Supreme Court monitored investigation. It is the magistrate's job to monitor an investigation, not the Supreme Court. And see what happens. I can tell you, in all the 2G cases, charge sheets were filed because it was a court-monitored investigation. Nonsensical charge sheets were filed. You have to read the judgment of that judge of in the 2G cases, where he said what sort of charge sheet against Sunil Mittal and Airtel, the charge sheet was filed. The judge has directed action to be taken against the CBI officials who filed that charge sheet. This is what happens in court-monitored investigations. The investigator feels, look, if I don't find the commission of an offense, or if I don't find the person about whom the media is banging on about being guilty, then the court will say, what are you doing? And the criticism will be, what are you doing? You're favoring somebody. So, tell you what, let me throw him under the bus. Let him suffer, spend a year or two in jail. We denied bail in a court-monitored investigation, and later on, everybody will say, very sorry, very sorry. This is what is going on. So, this whole court-monitored investigation concept should be disbanded, according to me. It is the most serious violation of personal liberties. It is different if it's a large public offense, like a riot or something, where you feel that due to political reasons, there is no investigation going on. That's different because that's not directed against any person.
Quite recently, the Constitution bench, so in an arbitration case, they've said unstamped arbitration agreements cannot be enforced in the court of law. So, having gotten into such technicalities, how do you think it reflects on Indian arbitration globally, sir?
Every time, this is the trouble. We have a very crab-like movement. We take 2 steps forward, then 2 steps back, and then 2 steps sideways. It's very unfortunate, but that's what happens in India.
So, is it going to look good? I mean, is it?
How can it look good? I mean, come on. How can it look good?
Yes.
Whether an agreement is stamped or not, we all know that arbitration agreement is a separate contract within an agreement.
Yes, sir.
Then, arbitration agreement can be by exchange of emails. Who requires stamping of an arbitration agreement? But anyway, hopefully Parliament will have to correct the law.
Yes, sir. And
it will be
again,
done quickly.
yes, sir. In another Constitution bench judgment, the Supreme Court has said they can use their inherent powers under Article 142 to grant divorces when the marriage is irretrievably broken. So, what is your take, sir? Can the Supreme Court, take the responsibility of dissolving marriage?
No, there I'll tell you what I have. Maybe I'm wrong, but what I have read of that judgment is it says the Supreme Court can grant divorce on irretrievable breakdown, overriding the 6-month wait period and overriding certain considerations. I had challenged way back the requirement of the second consent after 6 months, especially against women. So that is one important consideration. The second is the absence of divorce, where there is an irretrievable breakdown of marriage. I think is a serious violation of Article 21, because being compelled to live a life which is a life of pain and suffering can never be consistent with human rights. So I think if the Supreme Court has used its power under 142 to get past all these procedural steps. See, it's not that Supreme Court has invented divorce. Divorce exists. There are certain procedural steps to be taken. They have said these we can do away with Article 142. I think they are within their jurisdiction.
Certainly, sir. And since September, October, Constitution benches have been continuously functioning, sir, laying down one law after the other. How do you look at it, sir? Do you think it's
very good? Very good. Very good. We have a very big Supreme Court now, very large number of judges. There is such a pile up of constitutional law judgments. I'm very happy that they are sitting and finishing them off.
Right, sir. And back to Shweta now, sir.
Mr. Salve, I have to ask you, the political temperature in India is very high at the moment. Karnataka elections, Karnataka goes to polls tomorrow. Results are expected on Saturday. From where you are, you said that the India story, we started with that. The India story is looking very good. This is also the pre-election year. Any perspective on elections at the moment, or would you like to hazard a guess on which government is likely to come into power in
I,
Karnataka?
I don't ever like to guess which government is coming into power in a public discussion. The political temperature is high everywhere. Look at United Kingdom.
Yeah.
The drubbing which the Conservatives got has put everybody in a state of gloom. So this kind of problem is endemic. India. Can you refresh my memory? Do you remember 7 consecutive days in India in the last 20 years which have not been on the boil? I can't.
That's true. I have to say, no, but from an investor point of view, you work with so many MNCs. When
Very
I'd
different.
like you to,
Very
yes,
different.
yeah,
The reputation of Modi government, and I don't want to get drawn into any controversy of Modi government's track record on social issues. We all have our views. I may not subscribe to a lot of criticism which is hurled at this government. That's my personal view. I don't want to get into that. The government's track record in the matter of development, in the matter of policy stability, in the matter of encouraging foreign investment is admirable, and there is a great sense of comfort today in foreign investors going to India. The concern that every second day there may be a change in government, or the governments are unstable, the government is wobbly, or there may be dramatic policy changes, U-turns, that fears has abated. And
okay,
India's story today is doing very well in the commercial world. This I can tell you. There was a time where people would be worried about investing in India. Yes, there is a concern, and I must air it. There is a concern about when you read every day about the EC arresting, the ED arresting so and so, and the ED arresting so and so, and the way the courts are dealing with it. But having said that, overall the feeling is very upbeat, and people feel whatever may happen in India, whatever may be the noise, you've had almost close to 10 years, 9 years have already gone by of very stable policy, very stable political government. And by the look of things, in the next 5 years are going to go in the same direction. And the next 5 years are going to be defining 5 years for the world. They're going to be defining 5 years for the world because the US-China relationship will have to come to some kind of a conclusion. It's in a
right.
wobble today. The Russian-Ukraine war, Europe's position with Russia, Europe's position with United States, the energy world, COP, all this is going to come in the next 5 years, and therefore all this has become vital. So, and in these crucial years, people feel whether it's a question of by what majority will Modi win. It's not a question of will Modi win. And there is a great sense of comfort that therefore there will be a continuity in the economic policy making and in the stability.
I have to ask you, that's of course very, very optimistic. But like I said, like the narrative that constantly one gets to hear within India is never a dull moment. Last few months have also seen a controversy rage around the appointment of judges, High Court and Supreme Court, the Collegium controversy. I wanted to get your thoughts in on that. Why is the judiciary so resistant about accepting change?
I will. I've always had a sharp difference of opinion in this. I was a votary of the NJAC, the Judicial Appointments Commission. Nowhere in the world does the judiciary appoint itself, and I do not subscribe to the belief that if the judiciary is not left free to appoint judges, then the independence of the judiciary will be compromised. These are myths which need to be busted. The, I mean, take a case of United Kingdom, the most independent. It's the most independent judiciary, and yet they have never had a problem of this kind. Judges are never appointed by the judges. Judges are always appointed by somebody or the other. So, this is all very. I don't agree with all this, and I have been against this judges appointing judges theory.
So then, what's the pushback? I'm sure it's a divided house there. Why is it that we are facing so much resistance
Well, the
on?
judges have expressed themselves in the NJAC judgment. Speaking for myself, what the government should do is come up with an amended NJAC addressing one or two issues which were of genuine concern, and bring another law, and then on that basis the government should try getting the judgment reconsidered.
Okay. Well, we are coming to a close, Mr. Salve. Two very quick questions. You've been described as a workhorse. Whoever I've spoken with says that Mr. Salve can work and continue working. How many hours are you putting in a day in London? And does the cool weather of London help you work better? And that's why
Yeah,
you park yourself?
I enjoy working here. I enjoy the discipline. I've done what I call legal retailing in India long enough. Doing 15 cases in a day and running from court to court and running. Now I enjoy taking on a handful of cases, do them thoroughly, work on them. And I just did a full trial in England lasting 6 weeks, did nothing else in those 6 weeks, prepared that trial for 4 weeks, argued for 6 weeks. Now I'm working on another case. We're just working on this case for 2 months, 3 months to be argued later. So that I love working at that pace where you work a thing down to its bone, get fully ready, rather than the Indian style of working. Worked long enough there, now I'm enjoying this. Intellectually, this is far more satisfying. So, fortunately, this means you work lesser hours.
Okay. And any specific reason why you've chosen London as your base for the
Well,
past some time now?
see, for a long time, my work started growing more in the world of international arbitration and that kind of stuff. And I realized if you, as a counsel, if you have to practice commercial, then this is the place to be. India, we don't do trials anymore. In India, commercial arbitration is still. Look at what happened. You had a commercial arbitration hearing, the government played foul, the whole thing got adjourned. These things don't happen here. If you have a case, you either somebody drops dead one day before the case, it gets adjourned, or the case settled. Otherwise, you go on the fixed date and you finish on the fixed date. And therefore, you live off a diary, so you can regulate your life.
All right, sir. Any last advice before we let you go for young lawyers?
Young lawyers, you're born in a very exciting time, and I am so delighted nowadays when I come and see these bright youngsters with iPads in hand, much cleverer than we were at their age. Keep working, keep your nose to the grind. That's the only way it works, and don't get disheartened if you do not get a lot of work in the earlier years. You will always make it.
All right. Okay, Mr. Salve, thank you very much. It was a pleasure having you on Moneycontrol, and we hope to have you back on the platform very soon. Thank you,
Thank you.
Tyagarajan.
Thank